Okay, good evening. Today is November 16th. This is the meeting of the Hyde Park Central School District's Board of Education. At this time, I have a motion to enter exec session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to personnel, job performance, and collective bargaining, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? No opposed? Thank you. We're now in executive session. Thank you for your patience. May I at this time have a motion to return to open session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We're now in open session. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. And the flag is... I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Please,
Okay, there are no agenda modifications. May I have a motion to adopt today's agenda as listed?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That brings us to upcoming events. So Wednesday, the 29th, 6 o'clock is the next DLT meeting at the district office. Thursday, the 30th, the next day, would normally be a board meeting, but we will not have that. So the board meeting for that night is canceled. We have a bunch of concerts coming up. Well, actually, there's one thing in here. December 2nd is the FDR Craft Fair at FDR. It's 9:30 to 3, I think. On the 5th, Tuesday the 5th, is the Violet Avenue Winter Concert. On the 7th is the middle school concert #1 at the middle school, of course. Oh, and the Violet Avenue's concert is here in this building. The 12th, December, is the second concert for the middle school at the middle school. On the 14th is at 7 o'clock is the Netherwood Winter Concert, and it says here it's at Netherwood. Is it at Netherwood this year?
I believe so. It was last year.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure. Because I just invited everybody at the chamber breakfast this morning to come to the concert, so I make sure. Also on the 14th is the next regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting, and that's at Haviland, which I will say again, I always get upset when we have a concert and a board meeting on the same night, but evidently we couldn't manage the schedule differently, so. All right. That brings us to Pride.
So this is a bit of a long one tonight because I am doing a recap of all the FDR athletics for the fall. So girls tennis had an overall record of 7 wins and 2 losses, and we had several players who qualified for the Section 9 championships. For singles, Ashley Dolan, and for doubles, Williana Lundy, Lexis Pattershall, Amber Hicks, and Danielle Nugent. For golf, we had 8 wins and 2 losses. The players who qualified for Section 9 championships were Zach Plambeck. Volleyball, we had 8 wins and 10 losses. They won the first sectional round game and advanced to the Class A semifinals. Boys soccer had a total of 9 wins, 4 losses, and 2 ties. They advanced to the Class AA semifinals, and several players were selected to play in the senior recognition game. Girls soccer, they had 5 wins and 10 losses, and also had several players selected to play in the senior recognition game. Football, we had 5 wins and 4 losses, and they won the first round sectional game and advanced to Class A semifinals. Several players played in their senior recognition game last night, where I believe they won. So, yay. Girls swimming, they placed 8th out of 18 teams in the Section 9 championships, and several swimmers who qualified for New York State Public High School Championships in Ithaca on November 17th and 18th, which I believe is this weekend. Those are Ashley Paterno, Amber Deal, Catherine Graham, and Lauren Sanford. For cross country, the boys teams, Mahal Championships for the 3rd consecutive year, and they placed 3rd in the Class A Section 9 championships. As far as individual champion, Liam Farrell placed 3rd and qualified for states. There, he placed 21st, qualifying for federations this Saturday at Bowdoin Park. For the girls, they came 2nd place at Mahal Championships and placed 5th for the Class A Section 9 championships. Sarah Trainer placed 3rd for the Section 9 championships and qualified for states, where she placed 9th and also qualified for federations this Saturday. Both boys and girls teams have not lost a regular season meet in the last 3 seasons. Non-athletic news, one of our orchestra members, Caroline Ryan, will be performing at Carnegie Hall on February 2nd. She was chosen based on an audition out of thousands of international applicants, and she'll be playing under a world-renowned conductor. And Sources of Strength kicks off its gratitude campaign on Monday.
Excellent.
Thank you. Since we did a lot of athletic stuff, I just mentioned that on Wednesday, unless I didn't hear right, on Wednesday, the Rhett Burns signed with Northeastern for rowing. Right, so.
He also placed 1st at something. The head of the Charles, I think. Yes? Head of the Charles, yes. Yes.
I'd like to also add that we had another great play at FDR for the fall drama for the Panic broadcast of 1938.
excellent.
I think it was awesome. Look forward to the spring coming up.
I kept waiting for the aliens to show up, though.
No aliens, no aliens. But it was really wonderful. They did a great job, of course. I was in awe. So.
Just 2 more things. We had Greg Teng Jr. nights, both at Violet Avenue. I'm sure Deanna will talk about it later, as well as at Ralph R. Smith. He's kind of the math guru that's very exciting and engaging. So those were well-attended family events. And we had a handful of students. We were allowed to send 4 or 5 to the IBM Student Expo this past Saturday. And the feedback that we have preliminarily was that the students really had a great time. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention that November is a big board birthday month. We have 4 board members with birthdays in November and 1 today, so I don't mean to single anybody out, but a big happy birthday to 4 of our board members. Okay.
Anybody else have any? Okay, well, we have one special one coming up.
Yes.
Bill Mansfield is,
Yeah, so we'd like to invite Bill up to the podium. Go ahead, you want to say it?
Yeah.
Or go up there?
okay. Well, Bill, we'd like to present you this certificate, for your service to our country. As you told me earlier, it was over a 42-year period. So, 42 years, folks. So, well, congratulations. You're not leaving us. You're just leaving the Army.
Correct.
Congratulations.
I'd just like to also say that, you know, in your service, both in the district and to our country, it's just, you've been a tremendous role model for everyone here, for the students, for the staff, to manage both being in the Army National Guard for 42 years on and off, and the quality of the work and the team building that you've done at Haviland. And I know we talked the other day about the team that you have at Haviland. You wouldn't trade it in for the world. And I think it speaks to the qualities that you have, your leadership qualities, your service mentality, and from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for your service, and we're happy you're staying with us, so congratulations again, Bill.
Okay, that brings us to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so very briefly, I just wanted to give an update. The Hyde Park Education Foundation, both Deanna Gonzalez and I are ex officio members, is moving right along. We're this close to, or they're this close to having their 501c3 status reinstated, and it's so close that we're just moving full speed ahead. There's hoping for a very first annual event on Memorial Day, and they want to include a lot of students in all of our schools. It'll be a tremendous fundraiser. It is called the Field of Honor. We have submitted the application, and the Field of Honor is a fundraiser where people purchase or purchase the right to plant a flag, and you have an entire flag. We're hoping to sell between 200 and 400 flags. They'll be out on Route 9 during the parade. We've looked at visuals of other communities that have done this. You can certainly do this in honor of someone who has served, or just as a matter of giving thanks. So we're really excited about this. We think that the foundation is going to do a lot of great things for the school district. We feel that their signature kickoff event is very Hyde Park and very a true representation of how our community can come together and celebrate our students. So more to come on that. Richard Hooley is here with us, so he'll probably speak a little bit, or maybe I'll ask him to touch a little bit on this. We were at the breakfast this morning for that portion of the meeting, but bus safety is a huge concern throughout New York State. The statistics of people who are passing school buses, who are stopped with red lights flashing, dropping off children, is alarming and growing. We've spoken to our police department about it. We've had several reports. This seems to be not a good side of people's civic responsibility to stop when school buses are flashing their red lights. There's some bills before the legislation to make it mandatory to have the, I don't want to do this, it might smack somebody, but those bus arms. And there was a presentation this morning. So we're going to be looking more into this at our Dutchess Chief School Officers meeting. There was a presentation by a company who does the school bus arms, and we're looking into how we could finance that. We're also looking as superintendents how we can push the bill forward to get some traction, both for people to adhere to flashing red lights on buses, and also maybe making these arms mandatory so that it's not left to chance. So just an update from that. And that's it.
Yeah. At this point, we'll have some words from Dr. Hooley.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you tonight. I think I know most of you, but for the audience, my name's Richard Hooley. I'm the district superintendent of Dutchess BOCES. I have just completed my second year, and we're off to the third. So just taking this opportunity to make sure the lines of communication are open between school boards and the Dutchess BOCES, and I want to report a few things of interest about our relationship with Hyde Park. First, I want to thank you for permitting us to locate the countywide academic summer school at Hyde Park for the last 2 summers. This has worked very well for Duchess BOCES, and I think there's a part of that that works well for the Hyde Park students who are used to going to summer school in their home school. So that has really been a success and something that was requested by the superintendents in the county. In terms of services with BOCES, I just want to run through how Hyde Park works with the BOCES or participates in our programs. You have about 159 students who are involved in programs with Duchess BOCES. 135 of those attend CTI, our Career and Technical Institute. Those are vocational and trade classes. You have 8 students in our Salt Point Center. Our Salt Point Center is on the, we call it the Salt Point campus, so that's not very descriptive, but it's the main campus of Salt Point Turnpike. That school, Salt Point Center, houses K through 8 students, primarily students with special needs, but there are some general education students in programs there as well. You have 3 students at Beta, which is our alternative high school. That's located in a business park on Route 44. And you have 4 students who are in-district classrooms. These are classrooms that are BOCES classrooms, but instead of being at one of our campuses, they're located in school districts. Sometimes that's because of clusters of students that have the same needs in a geographical region of the county, or it may have even something to do with transportation. And then 9 of your students receive itinerant services. Itinerant services are services that are shared among a couple of school districts. An example might be a teacher of the visually impaired who may serve a student at Hyde Park for a portion of the day and then go to Spack and Kill for the rest of the day. So that's the total of 159 students, just to kind of give you a sense. Also like to take this opportunity to talk about some changes at BOCES. So we're very excited to welcome a new principal of our Salt Point Center. Her name is Melissa Murphy. She comes to us from a private school for students with disabilities in the city. And what's interesting, new learning for me, is that when private schools provide those services, they are very much inspected and regulated. Certainly public schools are too, but when people are spending the kinds of money you spend in a private school, there's lots of regulations that are looked at. So she comes to us with a great body of knowledge about requirements and regulations, and we're excited for that. She also has a background in behavior. So she teaches as an adjunct professor at Hunter College, and many of the students who we see at Salt Point Center are there because of challenges with behavior. So we're excited about the changes that have happened so far, and I think you'll see some of those changes over the course of her tenure with us. We also hired this summer a director of special education. Her name is Denise Jakowski. Denise comes to us from another BOCES actually up north, and we had never had, we're one of the few BOCES that I've ever heard of that didn't have a director of special ed. So we actually abolished a position which was a director of educational programs in order to fund this position because we thought it was so important. And it's nice for school districts to have someone at BOCES that speaks the same language as a special ed administrator, someone who's sat on a CSE, someone who's done some of those that IEP work. So we're excited about having Denise. She also addressed, I think last month, the Dutchess County School Boards Association. They had a special session on special education services. We just hired a new coordinator of related services. Her name is Suzanne Smith. She comes to us from Ulster BOCES. So again, we're happy to have all these new folks. Just for your information, our focus at Dutchess BOCES for the last 2 years has been in the area of literacy. We think literacy is so pervasive in all of our work that we just want to make sure that we're doing all we can to strengthen teaching and learning skills in that area. So if you think about CTI, and any of you have taken a look at a technical manual in the last 2 years, they're so complicated and so difficult to read that we think having kids in CTI programs with good literacy skills is a big help. Also at Salt Point Center, although we have lots of assessment on those students, some of the actual instruction in early literacy has not been as strong as we would like. So we hope that those changes will present themselves in terms of student achievement. Finally, in the area of professional development, there's a lot going on. We are working to up our game and become more relevant and more cutting edge. It may take us some time, but we have succeeded in bringing some major educational thinkers to the county. Several weeks ago, Chris Emden, who speaks about effectively teaching minority children in urban settings, presented at Duchess Bosse's as part of our Finding the Brilliance series. And lucky part about my job is I get to hear some of these great speakers, and he was really spellbinding. Hyde Park staff are signed up for 2 other national speakers, one on brain research and special needs. His name is Dr. David Souza, and that's tomorrow. And then later on, a personal look at autism. Some of you may know the name Temple Grandin, Dr. Temple Grandin, and she's presenting with Duchess Bosse. So we're excited about all that. Moreover, 2 of your staff and 2 of our staff from Duchess Bosse's went to Boston in July. And then the 4 came back and presented to 27 teachers in the county on question formulation technique, which is a teaching strategy, learning and teaching strategy. And then finally, we launched a program for leaders in pupil personnel, and Hyde Park has 4 participants in that. And during July, we invited Irene Fontes to come, one of the probably the biggest name in early literacy in the country. She came right to Duchess Bosse's, and she taught a class in what every administrator needs to know about literacy. And I think there were a number of people from Hyde Park who attended that too. So we're excited about the work we're doing. We got plenty of work in front of us, and I'll invite you to ask any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Anybody have a question? Any question?
Sure.
Great, no question.
Wait, we got one.
I think I've said it before, I'm a huge advocate of the CTI program. And I'm always looking for opportunities of what can we be doing better. I'm a little concerned, some of the stories that I hear of the number of students that we send there that don't complete or aren't successful in their full program. And that concerns me. I too often hear people think of BOCES as being an opportunity of last resort, which I think is a huge shame, and it's particularly in the CTI program, that there's so much that could be done. What can we be doing? What can be done? How do we step this up? We are going to need plumbers and carpenters and auto mechanics long after everything comes in offshore. What do we need to do?
Well, it's a great question, one that we wrestle with a lot. I'll say having opportunities to communicate back and forth like this is a way for you to keep reminding us of that important mission. I will say this year, each year, a BOCES receives money from the federal government in the form of a Perkins grant, and we are actually taking that money this year to do a study using a third party, external third party, to review the Duchess BOCES and say what things could we be doing better and where are the efficiencies and what things should we be doing. So we're kind of excited to use that information to direct our work. We do have a number of programs that do quite well. Our nursing program is one we're very proud of. Cosmetology is very popular. We have a new agriculture teacher that I think in the next couple of years you're going to see a lot of change. But you are absolutely right that it's hard to get all the interest where we need it. So plumbing is a big deal. I'm renovating a house on Grand Avenue in New York, in Poughkeepsie, the city of Poughkeepsie, and it's a struggle to get good folks. But the other challenge we have is there are a lot of high school kids who don't really want to go into plumbing. It's not very attractive to them, and that's certainly some of our work. And we have some ideas on how to do that, but we don't have a plumbing program right now, which is a shame because it's hard to get a good one, and they're few and far between. So we have some work to do, but I do think you're asking those kinds of questions keeps us on our toes and does help us strive to do a better job. I don't know if that answered it fully.
As a follow-up, do you have any statistics that show the success, and success is a pretty broad word, but students who complete, and I'm a BOCES graduate myself many decades ago, but I knew what I was in was a 2-year program. I was in a carpentry program. Is the carpentry program is it a 2-year program? How many students start as they're in their junior year and finish in their senior year? Do we have those kind of statistics for all of the programs?
We absolutely do, and I can
Okay.
get that to Greer, and she can share it with you. My board, as you can well imagine, is very interested in that same kind of statistic, and we started gathering that, and we prepare it for them each year. So I'll have it for last year, and at the end of this year, as part of my evaluation, they look at those statistics. So we have people who complete, who come back, because that's an important indicator, and then we have kids that stay in the program but may not complete, which is what you're talking about. So we have all of that, and I'll get that to Dr.
And I
Hyde.
do think you mentioned the idea of plumbing not being, I don't know if you use the word sexy, but that's the word I use. You
Yeah.
know, plumbing may not be a sexy profession, but some of that's perception. A lot of it is, and I think we're doing a much better job, and I say we as all the school districts in the county, we do career fairs now. We're doing things where we're showing the availability of careers, and I think we're starting to see a little bit of a turn. I mean, I'm looking, at people who are involved in the construction industry, and it's difficult to get those trades, and they're demanding better salaries now. The pay scales are starting, are competitive. And I think a lot of it's presentation. A lot of it, particularly, maybe we need to have a conversation with our own guidance department as to, it's not just for those who can't do it elsewhere. It's for those who really want to excel in a trade. So, thank you for being here.
Sure. One other thing I'll say, that when we do our annual meeting now, we do it during an expo up at our campus. And we actually have students, and really students more than faculty, talk about the various programs they're in. So these are kids who are actually in the class. Very interesting to hear the kids talk about what this means to them. And to the extent that we can get other people to come to that and kind of hear it from the students' mouths, I think that's a great selling point. We also invite to that expo middle school students who compete in some of our technical competitions. It's kind of like Amazing Race. They have to go to cosmetology, and then they have to go to vet tech and like that. But that is also our attempt to get some younger people in to see what BOCES is all about. But there's plenty of work to do, and I'll be hearing back from you about how we're doing. Thank you.
I just have one question, maybe a comment. The question is, do you deal with local business people? I was at a chamber breakfast this morning and asked Dave Stewart, who's an electrician, how it was going. He said, I can't get anybody, I can't hire people. There just aren't people. Do you work with chambers, and do you work with, it seems like if there was a business consortium, a group that gave you parameters of what they needed, that maybe that would help the curriculum development.
Right. We have business partners with all of our vocational programs, and they actually come in and talk to us 4 times a year about what they're seeing in terms of changes in the industry, and also review our curriculum and what we're doing. So for a nice, easy one to talk about, but one among many, is the CIA is one of our partners with our culinary program. So as you can imagine, having them come in and saying, this is what's happening in the industry, and here's where your kids need to be prepared. So we do that. Okay. And we also have a general advisory. We have the trade advisory, and then a general advisory, which meets, I think, twice a year, and that's more community people as well as businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you very kindly. I know there's a lot to do at a board meeting, and I don't want to take up too much time. If there's ever a question, please call us directly or work through Greer, and we'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what we all been waiting for. Deanna?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Violet Avenue. It's nice to have you here. So we'll just start. Our mission statement and our motto that we created a couple of years ago as a BLT, as a building, is we are a diverse, caring community that's dedicated to excellence. And our saying, our motto that's outside on our board and on our lanyards and part of our everyday living is we're daring to be awesome. And I think you'll see in our board presentation that we have evidence that they're doing pretty awesome, that the kids and the staff in this building are doing a great job. So I think we're living up to that already. On our first slide, we have our ELA data, and this is our data from the last testing, so testing in the spring that we received over the summer. We had an increase across the grade levels. Our overall increase in ELA was 13%. So you'll notice by the slide that in every grade level, 3, 4, and 5 went up for an overall increase of 13% this school year. Our math data is similar. We also had an increase across the grade level. We also had a big increase last year. If you remember our presentation, we had a huge jump, similar to the huge jump that we had in ELA. This year, we had that in math. But again, our overall increase was 10%. Fifth grade was actually, the jump was 24% from last school year to this school year. But again, with an overall percent increase of 10% and up in all 3 grade levels. There was an article that I recently shared with Aviva and Greer that was brought to my attention in the Poughkeepsie Journal. The state just recently did a schools index report where they reported on several different indices of a quality school besides just test scores. So they take into account class size, teacher retention rate, student attendance rate, teacher attendance rate, and diversity. And I'm happy to say that in that report, and it's only one measure, Violet Avenue was the 8th highest school in the entire county, and had a pretty high index. Out of 100, the index for Violet Avenue was 87.3. So it was pretty high on the index. So it was something we're proud of. It's just one measure, it's not everything, but it was something really nice. Just one other thing to just acknowledge to everybody and to the staff that's sitting here and the staff who couldn't make it, just that we're on the right track and doing the right thing, and they are awesome. And our kids are showing that they're capable and can grow. So it was nice to share. Our instructional next steps, thanks to you and your support and grant money that we've received, we have a tremendous amount of new technology in the building. Each of our instructional spaces in the building now have an interactive TV, which is kind of a high-tech smartboard. And those are up and working and being utilized in classrooms. One of the pictures that you see here, that is Greg Tang Jr. with our teachers in the morning, because we've had a tremendous amount of PD about how to use the technology and then already using it for how do we apply it to instructional practice. So Greg Tang Jr. was here and did work with teachers in the morning on math games that are available on his website, and then also the hands-on version of those games. So it's our technology in use already. We're also working on continuing to strengthen our workshop model in both reading and writing. It's one of the reasons why I truly believe we're growing so much in literacy, is because we're really putting a quality workshop model in place with the helps of the unit of study from Teachers College. So we're going to continue to work on that. It's an ongoing process. We're increasing our math fluency, and you'll see we're shifting gears a little bit. I tend to be a literacy person, and it's my go-to thing, but we're going a little bit out of our comfort zone this year. So we're working a lot on building our math fluency so that we can continue to see the jumps in math that we've seen, and bringing Greg Tang Jr. in and those games and the Tangy Tuesday puzzles that they're getting, and really trying to build kids' fluency in math has been a goal and will continue to be a goal throughout the year. And finally, we have a tremendous amount of professional learning. I would say we probably have PD right now, moving up to Christmas break, at least 2 or 3 days a week. So that's happening in the mornings before the start of the school day. We have that in technology. We're doing things with reading and writing with our directors, and also in the area of math. We've been having special ed meetings. We have a book study coming up after the Christmas break. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and that's really well attended whenever those sessions happen. So that's also part of our continuous growth and trying to improve our practice. Our building leadership goal this year is around STEAM. When I was putting together our PowerPoint presentation and when I was thinking about our goals for this year, one area, we've done a tremendous amount of work in reading and writing and in math, but one of the areas that I feel like we could enhance is our science fair. Our science fair so far has sort of been kind of small. Our 5th graders have all done a science fair project, and our classes K4 have each done a class project. But it's been, the 5th grade parents have come because they've each done a science fair project, and that's displayed in the classroom. But it isn't particularly well attended, or hasn't been in the past, the way we've done it right after school. So this year we decided we would make that our building leadership goal, and we would try to enhance our fair itself. So this year, in addition to doing the science fair projects, we're going to do a STEM evening or a STEAM evening for parents, where they would come into the gym and they would be able to participate with their kids on projects or experiments that have to do with STEAM. So we're meeting as a building leadership team, and we're developing that currently. But I can say Greg Tang Jr. did come for a parent night in the area of math, and it was really nicely attended. We had about 75 people who attended that, and parents came with their kids and sat side by side and engaged in those games. So we're hoping that we'll have a similar turnout, and we can kind of turn kids on a little bit more to the science and the engineering and mathematics and technology that we now have in the building, and the arts. So that's an ongoing goal, and I'm going to definitely include you on that evening. So if you want to come, I would love to have you here. Or some of you are even involved in that area, and if you wanted to volunteer and help us with that, we would love it. It'll be our first year. I know, little plug. So if you want to come and help us and volunteer, we would love to have you, and we'll definitely invite you, and I hope you can make it, because I know it's a board goal too for those evenings.
Deanna, one thing that would be helpful,
Yeah.
sometimes people wait until they actually have the flyer generated,
Yep.
but they know the date 2
Yes.
months earlier.
Yes.
So even if you don't have the flyer as soon as you
February
put...
21st.
There you go.
2018. It's a Wednesday. Our original night that was on the district calendar, if you look, was February 22nd, which was a Thursday evening, but it happens to be a board night. So I moved it back one day, just in case you wanted to come.
So the 20...
So we're going to move it to the 21st, which is a
21st,
Wednesday
okay.
evening.
Great.
And we didn't see any conflicts with other things going on in the district, and we moved it off a Thursday, hoping you might be able to come, or better yet, volunteer. For our character education, also something that I think we take pride in, and we're trying to develop at Violet Avenue. We continue to use TCIS, and I put the terms for the acronyms so that it was clear for everybody. But it's Therapeutic Crisis Intervention in Schools. We continue to use that. We continue to have a trainer on staff who's been doing training not only for the staff in the building ongoing, but has also been able to train staff around the district, because it's just about helping to understand kids and what works for them and what keeps them in program and engaged in education. So it's really good for all children. We also continue to use zones of regulation. We're working on trying to bring that training to the district for next year, so we're hoping to continue to grow that, because it's similar to TCIS in the ways that we support kids and keep them learning. We continue to work with B through the Sanctuary Program, the trauma-based model that we've talked about in the past. We have a parent forum that's coming up. Viva, you might have to remind me of the date. December
13.
I want to say 13th.
Yep.
The evening of December 13th. Violet Avenue is going to host that for the entire district, so that's something that all of our families in the district will be invited to, and it's around parenting and supporting kids.
And specifically, when behaviors are challenging, how to
Yep.
help parents when the behaviors become challenging.
Yeah.
That's what's on the flyer.
And I don't know about other parents,
Sure.
but I think all kids can have challenging behaviors from time to
Absolutely.
time. I know mine do.
Absolutely.
So yes, on December 13th, we'll be hosting that here, and the flyer will be coming home to all families in the district K-12.
English and Spanish.
In English and Spanish, yes. We also continue to have Second Step, the education program that the district's purchased, available in the building. And our classrooms do a lot of support of kids and just community building in their own classrooms as well. It's not a formal program, but it's definitely a part of our culture. VAS activities, we have a lot of them. We just most recently had Harvest Night, which was last Thursday. It was well attended. We had our scary hallway downstairs, which has become a favorite of parents and kids. They're a big fan of Ultra Scary downstairs in the basement. It's always fun. And then there was activities for those that don't care for scary, but it's a lot of fun. We had our Greg Tang Jr. night already, the upcoming parent forum. The PTA plans to have movie night again this year. We will be doing winter workshops the day before we go on Christmas break again, which is a nice opportunity for kids to engage in lots of other activities throughout the day that they might, and get to interact with teachers that they don't normally get to interact with because they're rotating around the building and doing lots of activities before they go on Christmas break. We again collected for UNICEF. We just had our fire prevention with Fairview Fire Department. They came in. They also just came in and worked with our kindergarten kids on Halloween safety. So it's nice that our first responders have been in the building and working with the kids. We are doing PARP again in the spring, which stands for Parents as Reading Partners. An event, a week-long event where we try to encourage kids to read more and read more with their families. We continue to do district pen pals. Our STEAM fair is on there because it's coming up, and I'm sure there's lots of other events that will happen before the end of the year. Our parental and community involvement, we have partnerships with Fairview Fire Department. Town of Poughkeepsie Police continues to support us with our drills and safety refreshers. Our IBM engineering program, we haven't had it yet, but we traditionally have that in the spring. We're looking forward to that. Our Rotary just donated the dictionaries to our third grade students. That just occurred, and the kids just got their dictionaries, which they were very excited about. We have continued our partnerships with Marist College, SUNY New Paltz, and Dutchess. We continue to have a tremendous amount of students from Marist. We host their Reading 2 students, so they come and they learn as like a lab site right here in the classrooms. So we have the Reading 2 students, they move into Reading 3, and then they go into student teaching. So some of them stay with us for quite a bit of time, and we're trying to encourage them to spend more time in the classroom so that they can learn what we're doing currently and what is current practice, so that it increases their chances of being employed after their graduation. So we continue to work with the professors at Marist College very closely. We just did our blood drive. Mr. Heater was here for our blood drive. We just had our blood drive. Our 5th graders participated in the Little Doctors program, where they helped to coordinate the activities and move volunteers through the process and understand why we collect blood. We continue also to have a foster grandparents program. We have 3 foster grandparents that work in classroom directly with children on a daily basis. We have our food pantry collection. Our Coke drive is going on currently, and we have volunteer readers, Mr. Heater being one of them, who comes and reads with the kids every Friday. Okay, so that's it for me. Just one other thing I wanted to add. I also had one other exciting update. We've talked in the last few months about our facility dog. So I wanted to let you know that We have filled out and sent in our applications, and I have heard from the facility dog from ECAD, and it looks like we're on track to receive our dog in August and should be on staff for the first day of school.
Wow.
So that's exciting, hopefully,
exciting.
if we find a good match. So it looks like we might be on track for the first day of school next year.
Cool.
So that might be a good day to visit Violet Avenue on opening day.
And I just want to add that Officer Monaco has expressed interest, and the Town of Hyde Park Police are supporting him being one of the handlers. So if there was an issue anywhere else in the district and we wanted the therapy dog there, that he could take the dog there so the staff here don't have to leave.
Nice.
Are there any other questions that I can answer?
Anybody?
Or any questions at all?
No? Thank you.
No? Okay,
Yes,
thank you
Deanna.
so much.
Thank you. At this time, we have an update on the capital project.
Great, and while they're getting up there, we're really going to talk about, look at one final design. We got some numbers yesterday. They do exceed where we, the parameters where we wanted to go, so tonight will be a night to explore some options, knowing that in the scope of the project, as the way we've been looking at it, it exceeds our cost. We'll begin the conversation tonight. We certainly have to bring our district leadership team on board, who's been with us for 2 years, to bring them into this loop of this new news about needing to really rethink maybe the scope of the project. But tonight will be the start of that conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. We're pleased to be here. I think you know these gentlemen, Kevin and Lou, with me today. I'm going to present a little bit about the educational programming that we've been doing and to look ahead at the next scheme that we'll be looking at. And then Kevin's going to talk a little bit about the mechanical part of the project, which is another major piece. And then Lou about how the estimating's going. So let's get going. I'm just going to talk about some of the changes we made to these plans, and then we'll go into the next area. As you know, this scheme was talking about renovating the pods. We had the science classrooms on the second floor and regular classrooms on the first. It called for a complete renovation of those areas, including putting new bathrooms and eliminating the ones that are in the middle of the pods right now, et cetera. So there have been some tweaks to the plan of this, adding an office for the athletic director that would view out to the fields as part of it now, adding a classroom in this area that hadn't been there before. But other than that, it's as we proposed it last time we were here. We did add a 2-story elevator right here as an extra elevator. You already have one, but it's on the other side of the building. So that's something we'll see if we can work in the project, if we can afford. This is just the second floor of those same pods, showing where the science area would be. Again, the bathroom, the 2-story situation there. These are just a few quick renderings that we did showing some of the corridor spaces. We call them learning corridors, where kids can go out in groups and do projects, because we'll have technology out there, we'll have whiteboards out there, et cetera. We were afforded that because of the space that we saved by changing the configuration of the classrooms, that we could have some hallway space that could be utilized for learning. And this is a little bit more of that, showing a couple of breakout rooms that we proposed in the plan on the first floor of the pods, where small groups could go and study and do projects. And also the glass area we were looking at putting in to bring light into the area by the bathrooms that would also look out upon a outdoor learning area that would just be on the grounds. This is just indicating in the yellow where the renovated areas would have been in this scheme on both floors. And then over at Haviland, where we had proposed to do renovate science rooms in place where they are. We were going to add 2 here that are regular classrooms now, and renovate 3 in the top where they are. So that is a very efficient scheme because the science rooms are already big enough to be science rooms, and these existing classrooms are also already big enough. So there's a lot of efficiency in doing that. These are just 3D looks at what those floor plans would look like. These are just for reference if we needed them, showing the layout of the rest of the building. Okay, so so that was one scheme, was to take the pods and completely gut them, turn it into a science center on the second floor, regular classrooms on the first. And in so doing, renovate that area because it has issues with plumbing, issues with walls, and et cetera. So another scheme that we're going to look at now, that we're going to start to look at and we'll bring to you, is what if in this building we renovated the science rooms where they are, like we're doing in Haviland? First of all, can we do it? Is it practical? And is it going to be more budget friendly to do it that way? So there will be some concessions in that the science department won't all be in one place. And we also want to start to look at some of the science labs that you have now are undersized and how we would expand them and yet keep them where they are. So they would take over, perhaps 2 classrooms would become 1 science room. So that's to come, probably the next time we see you. We'll have that with some numbers attached to it. The numbers you have tonight are based on the scheme with the pods, okay? Any questions on that part, the educational programming part?
I don't have any questions. I quite frankly, am a little disappointed that we see numbers like this at this late date. It may, I'm not questioning what the numbers mean, that, they are what they are,
Right.
but to more than double what we gave you as a target, and then, it's Thanksgiving. I don't see how we can resolve this quickly, nor get it vote out by February when we're so far apart here. It's quite frankly very disappointing.
Well, I'll just explain that the pod renovation really came in on budget. The mechanical part spun away a little bit because of how many, when we started looking at it in detail, and we went into much more detail than we normally do in pre-ref, which is good. There were a lot of ceilings and a lot of floors and a lot of hazmat materials involved in getting all that work done, to say we're going to replace all the mechanicals in all the buildings. So it was an all-in, and it turned out, after looking at it very closely, and we did, and Kevin will show you a little bit of that it was just more expensive. When you look at the building condition survey, it says a boiler costs $600,000, let's say. But then you start looking at the old boiler, and this is not the case, I'm just saying as an example, has asbestos on it, and we have to make a hole in the wall to get it out because it's big, and it doesn't fit through the door, and et cetera. And so we're at the level now where we're at that detail, which we don't always get to in a pre-ref. And so, but the team decided that we wanted to do that. We needed to do that because you have these great old historic buildings, and we didn't want to get burned on the other side after the bond issue. So I don't know if that serves to explain a bit, but that's the process. That's where we're at in the process. And so I guess any other questions on that?
Yeah, why weren't we told about I certainly, I can see doing research on the science classrooms themselves in that area, but the mechanical stuff, you would think, I would think, maybe incorrectly, that we should have known this months ago that it was, what, 22 million, I mean, that's over our budget and not even having the science stuff done. It really disappoints me to be here now seeing these numbers.
I understand absolutely what you're saying. What I'm trying to say is that we took it to a depth that we normally don't take it to because we thought we needed to. In doing that, it took longer, but it also exposed things that we're happy they're exposed now and not later. The difficulty of putting new mechanicals in a historic building and how we're going to do it and what the routing is and that kind of thing. We've looked at all that. So I understand you're disappointed. I do understand that. So Anything else on that subject?
What is different about the other buildings that you looked at this time as opposed to what has been done over the last 2 years in Haviland?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, Haviland has had extensive rework in the mechanical areas
Yeah.
because of the heating issues we've dealt with.
Right.
It does have an historic building in the front that was worked on. So all of a sudden, I would have thought if these problems you're exposing and looking into in depth that have occurred at Violet Avenue and the Violet Avenue School would have been already dealt with to some extent in the work we had done in Haviland.
The work done at Haviland was in the newer part of the building, and so the second phase of that is in the older part of the building. So that's the difference between the projects we're proposing and what was done a few years ago.
So you're saying the building we have renovated, the renovation we've done in the new section didn't have to deal with the asbestos issues and other issues that...
It may have had a bit of asbestos, but it didn't have all the challenges that the historic building will have. Okay, so I'd like Kevin to take a short time and go through where we're at with the mechanicals in each building and what his thought process was in coming to the design, and then Lou will talk about the budgeting.
Okay, I'll try to go through this as fast as I can. If you have any questions about detail, feel free to interrupt. And but basically, at the high school, we decided it made sense to break the school up into zones. They're very different types of activities, different system approach, and also we realized that that a project of this size can't possibly be constructed in one summer. Needs to be phased in. So we've broken this up into different zones and outlined our approach for each zone. We've also we've looked at routing of utilities and determined that the existing pipe tunnels look like they're a viable candidate, and we can make use of those, which I think will help us avoid some of the hazardous materials. And may make for a better system in the long run. One of the thrusts of I think the entire project is to move away from steam. I find it interesting that schools are embracing steam and we're moving away from steam heating systems. But to a hydronic-based system that would be much easier to control, much more energy efficient. And the goal in all this is really to achieve buildings that are well ventilated and we have adequate control for all the classrooms and supporting a healthy educational environment. So just some highlights here are the auditorium. There's an existing fan room that exists on the second floor that we're proposing to rebuild that fan room with new equipment. And try to avoid getting into disrupting a lot of the existing infrastructure that's there and working with what's there. The zone A and I guess in the blue, if you can see that, is mostly music and technology, and we have an approach there where we're looking at using rooftop units or air handling units in select spaces. And that would probably require a lot of new ductwork and new ceilings as a result of that. And some of what we run into is when we touch ceilings in some of these schools that there are materials above the ceiling that fall off onto the ceiling and create a hazardous atmosphere. So we have to deal with that before we can have contractors working in those areas. So what we would do is convert the existing steam system to hydronic hot water, and we would use temporary heat exchanger in the boiler room and add zone pumps, and we would eventually convert the whole system over to hydronic, and then we would take the existing boilers and convert them to hydronic. Right now they're steam, and we can make use of those existing boilers and not have to replace those. So in the pods, there's a completely separate mechanical system there. There's a boiler room in the basement. Again, it's a steam system, and what we propose for the layout, that's the concept layout, was rooftop energy recovery units to service the science classrooms. The ventilation requirements in science classrooms are very strict, and we really need to employ heat recovery. Basically, all the air that goes in is then turned around and thrown out, so we need to recover the energy from that. And then the lower floors would be more of a traditional classroom unit ventilator approach. And we've worked out ways we can get ventilation air, relief air, chases up through the second floor. Any questions on our approach there?
Yeah, a couple of questions. A couple of times you referenced the fact that we're converting from steam to hydronic.
Correct.
Would it be more cost effective to stay with the steam system?
Well, that's certainly an option, and it's something we might need to explore to reduce cost. I think there's an opportunity here to move forward in a new direction and replace some of the older infrastructure and set this up so you have a more efficient system. And also with hydronic systems, we can integrate future cooling requirements very easily. It gives a lot more flexibility to the school. So that's really the state of the art. If we can do that, we would prefer to move in that direction.
Move in the direction of hydronics.
Hydronics.
Okay.
I mean, there are certain benefits of steam. As an engineer, there's a certain elegance in the simplicity, but steam is basically all on or all off. It's you have to generate that 212 degree temperature to get the steam, and it's that temperature where there's a lot of days of the year when you don't need that much heat in the building, and it results in overheating, and all that energy that goes into generating that steam, you're in for it all year long. As opposed to a hydronic system where the systems can be designed to heat at temperatures as low as 110 to 130 degrees, so that when the current generation of boilers is ready to be replaced, and assuming we have gas available and a lot of things change in time, you can look at much more efficient heating plants that you can get upwards of 90-95% efficiency when you're operating in those temperature ranges. With a steam system, you're lucky if you get 82-83% if everything is very well tuned and you have an excellent maintenance program. But it's not uncommon to find boilers that are operating during the year at 60 to 65% efficient. So there's some benefits to that.
To rephrase what I think I heard you say, it's not an arbitrary decision to move in the direction of hydronics, because hydronics offers us the benefits of higher efficiency and more ease of control.
Correct.
And therefore, the cost-benefit ratio is worth perhaps the minor nominal extra expense.
I think the cost, the flexibility of the system moving into the future, if you decide you want to add some cooling or partial cooling for some classrooms, it's very easy to accommodate that with that system. That's not something that's built into this budget, but the systems are being designed to accommodate that.
So you probably didn't hear my colleague behind me, but as I was answering the question, he asked, is it a minor additional cost to move to hydronics?
No, it's not a minor additional cost. I didn't say it was a minor cost.
I implied that it was minor when I asked the question.
Oh, no.
I wasn't saying you did.
Sorry.
So I guess I would ask, can you represent or quantify the change in recovery time for the investment? I mean, to go hydronics, are we gonna be out 7 years, 10 years, 12 years before we break even with the extra money we put into the system as opposed to the efficiencies that we recovered from it?
I would say that it's not something that's going to pay back very fast. It's not like what would be a fast payback, maybe changing lighting to LED or something that might pay back in a year or two. That's really an investment in the future, I think. It's a system that you're putting in. I like to think a hydronic system is going to last 50 to 60 years. So it's something that may pay back in 10 years or 15 years, and then you're going to, receive those benefits moving forward, perpetuity.
Have our folks been able to examine the two options and cost alternatives in detail?
No, we haven't developed that as an option. We really wanted to put out the what we thought was the best approach for the future, and I think that was the task. It was upgrading the systems to state of the art, and I think now our challenge is to step back and look at ways that we can bring the cost back within budget.
Okay, so yeah, I suppose that I'm asking whether it's worth considering that. It seems like it is worth considering.
I think there's lots of options we will have to look at. It's certainly one of them, and then we'll have to have a discussion about what choices need to be made.
Okay. The other question that arose out as you were speaking is you talked about energy recovery from the science labs. So the numbers that are in front of us breaks down mechanical upgrades and science classrooms. Is there some cost in the mechanical upgrades that are driven by the science lab updates?
I think maybe Lou can speak to that, but I think that those costs are included in the pod cost breakdown.
Okay.
It's pretty much what we have to do to meet current codes.
Okay.
But just to clarify, I mean, that any of the systems that you're putting in are going to need to meet current ASHRAE standards and energy codes. So we're looking at, all the, any air handling equipment you're going to be putting in is going to be providing greater fresh air than what we have currently.
Correct.
So all that makeup air is going to have to be treated, and so I always want to be careful whenever I think of a HVAC project. When you're taking buildings from the condition that they are today and the standards that they're operating at today and move them to the current standard, I would be very careful about thinking that this is an energy project.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because, for instance, the space that we're in now, the systems are pretty much out of service. So there's no ventilation here other than what comes in through open windows and doors, natural ventilation. So part of what we're going to do is probably cost avoidance. Is that I have had in the past where we've talked about and putting in an energy management system and upgrading systems, and only to find out that the energy bills went up. So I think it's important to understand that we're going to probably be driving the energy intensity up, but trying to do it in a way that we can do it as efficiently as possible and keep the cost to a minimum.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest benefits that we'll see out of all of this equipment investment is going to be air quality. Well, we're talking about buildings that are going to be much better ventilated, heating systems that are going to be much better controlled. The operation of the building and the maintenance of the building is going to be far better than it has been in decades. But just when I think I heard people starting to think about payback, and I would just be very careful about going too far down that road in any way, because this project isn't going to generate, I wouldn't sell this project as generating any kind of a payback from a fuel efficiency.
Not compared to current funding.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be a payback and an avoidance way.
So
That's-
the point is changing, when you're looking at a greater efficiency, whether it's steam or whether it's hydronic, the relevance of it is less due to the fact that we just, by touching the equipment and changing the equipment out, we're going to be putting equipment in, we're going to be bringing much more air into the building that's going to have to be treated. And so all that we're saving by the efficiency of the equipment, we're going to be losing in the fact that we're bringing that much more air through the building.
I think that's important to bring to the public because they're expecting, like all the advertising you see on television everywhere else, change your boiler, improve your efficiency, save money. The focus in large buildings like this with large capacity students and stuff like that is that at the same time you've got to provide quality air and stuff, and that's going to work in the opposite direction.
Yep.
So that's going to be an area of discussion, I think, a heated discussion. So we need to be aware of that and make sure that when we bring the focus, we've got to bring that to the fore.
Yeah, and part of that air quality improvement is going to be better controls. So you're going to have temperatures that are going to fall between, they say the human body can identify about 2 degrees of temperature of where your comfort is. I've got to believe we struggle in our buildings trying to meet that. In any one room, you can have a lot of different people with different desired temperatures. But then, but even beyond that, it gets even, wider if you don't have the control on the system, so.
Is that pun intended, Dan?
No.
A heated conversation about it?
No, my experience has been over the last 4 years since my surgery that my tolerance or comfort zone has narrowed by about 50% from where it used to be. I could tolerate temperatures up to 80 and be comfortable in temperatures down to about 60. And now during the winter time, if that house is not at 70, I'm in deep trouble because my feet are jumping, my skin is cold to the touch. Things have happened because of my surgery that have put me in a position where I'm using more energy just to be comfortable.
That's why we put you next to Steve, because of his warm personality. You're
going to stay away from the hot air generation?
I thought it was my hot head.
I have a question.
Okay.
All the mechanical talk is kind of lost on me, and so I'm not even going to try to enter that conversation a little bit. But I know that I tend to be more of a middle-of-the-road kind of a person, we'd all love to have the state-of-the-art, best equipment that we can have, and I know personally, right, in my home, I would always like to do that too. But I'd like to explore some other more cost-efficient options as well, that we can compare with the efficiency of the plan that you're giving us with something that maybe costs us a little less and brings it in. So, I would like to just
Absolutely. That's the kind of feedback I think we're looking for as designers is what are the things that would make sense to the district for us to look at.
Thank you. Yeah, I think everybody agrees with that too. We need to explore some more cost-efficient options.
Yeah, I think that's my charge as an engineer is to show you where I think you could go, and I certainly understand the concern and can appreciate that, and we'll certainly do everything we can to give you the best project we can that is within the budget.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but as soon as we touch the building, the air quality number is set. It's independent of the technology we use or anything like that. No matter what you do to change the heat, as soon as you change the heat, as soon as you change the air circulation, you've got a fixed number that is current requirements for these buildings. And it's independent of any choice we make as to how we're providing the heat.
Oh, correct. As soon as we touch this,
it's go to this technology, we get a waiver. We don't.
No. It's we have to. State Ed does not give us a pass for dealing with older buildings. It's something that we just have to be creative in how we approach it. And we have a good relationship with State Ed, and we're able to talk through these things with them.
We got a guy.
We got a guy.
Anybody else have a question for?
You want me to quickly go through the rest of the buildings? Try to.
Please.
Okay. Okay, so this is the older portion, Area B, I guess. I'm not sure how you refer to that, but the older portion of Haviland. And what we've identified here are strategic locations for pipe risers. So we would have distribution in the crawl spaces below, rising up in strategic locations and running piping horizontally along the inside wall, and that would be covered with an enclosure, a pipe enclosure, and connecting to new unit ventilators that would be reusing existing wall openings. The other areas on here, the yellow areas are basically the classroom areas, and we also have the gym and the auditorium spaces, which are conditioned by equipment in the attic, and it'll show up on the next slide. But basically, it's a similar approach here. Although we don't have as many zones, we don't have it broken up quite as much. But we have basically a single zone handling the classroom spaces, and then separate mains that would be routed up through the building to serve the auditorium and the gym spaces. And then from above, what the challenge here is, once we bring that air into the building, we have to get it out of the building. So it's like a balloon. We can keep blowing air into the balloon, but if we don't let air out, it's going to stop. So with the ventilation system, we have to handle the conditioning and the intake of the air. We also have to provide a pathway for that to get out. And again, State Ed is very particular about how they interpret the codes and what they're looking for on this. And I'd say this has probably been a focus of theirs more in the last 5 years or so. So what we've established here are vertical chase locations where we can provide a pathway for the ventilation air to leave each of the classrooms. And then in the attic, we would have basically an exhaust system with a central fan, or several fans that would be exhausting air that's being brought in. And the challenge we have, and this is from a control standpoint, is these air quantities can vary depending on how the system is operating. So we have to design a system that will recognize that and react accordingly. And then with the larger spaces, the auditorium and the gym, we're proposing to add central station air handling units in the attic space. There's quite a bit of room there, and there are existing fan rooms that are sort of tucked in the ends that we don't think is probably cost effective to try to rework those spaces because they're very tight. So all of the exhaust air, intake air would be brought in and exited through the existing cupolas, relief points on the roof. So we really don't want to disturb anything that's on the historic part of the building.
So and the thing is, you've got more detail here than anybody would ever typically have at this point in a project. But since you've got it, I'm going to ask some more detailed questions. What is the existing relief path of the air in the current system? Is it all ducted relief, or do they use corridors for relief?
The existing relief air is there are existing what would you call those, penthouses, or they're like small cupolas that are on the roof. I think there's 3. So the exhaust is routed through there. I don't think those are large enough for all the relief air. So what we're planning on is repurposing the central cupola in this building and making that work more efficiently. So we're basically pulling all the air together, and we're pulling all the air through the building, and it would primarily out through here, but there's also there's a couple of existing locations on the roof that I think we're going to have to incorporate those.
So it's
We also have to keep the existing toilet exhaust systems and those
so
in place.
It's a ducted system now. The relief air is
Yes.
is a ducted system.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So are you making any external modifications to the old building, what's our C wing in the in middle school? I mean, that will have to go through SHPO. I mean, even if you change the size of anything.
No, I'm not envisioning that we would do
Okay,
anything.
nothing on the outside?
No,
Okay.
no.
Smart move.
So fresh air intake for univents, for instance, you're going to be able to use the existing
Yes.
penetrations.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
Okay, North Park presents some unique challenges because of the issues with excess humidity in this building. So what our approach would be to build in some additional features in this in this building to address that right up front. So we don't want to replace systems in this building and have the same types of issues perpetuated. So it's very similar in that we would have piping routed in the pipe tunnels. The pipe tunnels in this building are very nice, very roomy. Had a great time down there. Anyways,
I've actually been down there.
so again, we'd be converting this from steam to hydronic. And this might be a good building where, if we said to keep the steam, it's something we might want to pause and think about, because that could be causing some of the issues with the excess humidity in the building. Some of the existing piping a lot of it is in the pipe tunnel, but some of it is running underneath slabs. It's difficult to get to. There could be a broken pipe somewhere, or leak, or I've seen all kinds of strange things over the years. That could be elevating the humidity levels in the building. And once you get the moisture in the building, it's very hard to wring it out. So what we would propose is incorporating an active strategy to dehumidify the building. And it's fairly simple. It would just involve basically a 4-pipe approach instead of having 2 pipes that would be either heating or cooling. And again, we would need to introduce some cooling to do this. So we would have a cooling coil, and then we would have another set of pipes for reheat. And we would have the unit ventilators set up with 2 coils, so you can do dehumidification, and then you can use the heating coil to control the space temperature. So if any of you are familiar with like basement spaces, they're similar. You're very difficult to dehumidify without having a source of heat to reheat, because you want to have that process continue to operate, and it tends to you'll get into conditions where you'll subcool the space without having the ability to raise that temperature. So we need to include those facets in the design. So other than that, it's fairly similar in that we would use a similar approach, but we would have a heat recovery chiller would be at the core of that. So we would recover the heat from the chiller, and there's also the opportunity that we could put some solar thermal on the roof. We've done that, and it's a great application for putting a couple of small panels on the roof to capture that summer sun, that late spring, early fall sun that's very abundant. And the problem with solar thermal systems that people encounter with heating is they're trying to use it for heat in the winter when the sun isn't that abundant. And but I think this is a great application for something like that. So other than the classroom areas, we would have replacing air handling equipment in there's a mechanical room that resides above the corridor between the gym and the cafeteria. So we would replace that equipment as well. Any questions?
Yeah, but it's going to, if I can direct it to our person involved, what kind of a professional development program would need to be put in place as we switch over to these various technologies and some of the newer technologies which are not available right now and probably our people have never seen?
In terms of operating the system, like
Maintaining it.
it's just training on equipment. None of these systems are foreign to our technicians. It would just be learning how they're applied in this building. In other words, a four-pipe system is not foreign to our HVAC technicians.
All right. They've had experience outside of this school district in that.
Certainly, and we've already had 2 hydronic systems in the district, the A and B sections of Haviland and Netherwood Elementary, that these new systems would very much be similar to in terms of the operation and function.
And a solar would work the same way?
A solar would just be a component of the reheat side. We capture some natural energy as opposed to accelerating.
I'm not saying we would include that. I'm just saying that that's something that might be considered in the design.
No, it's just areas we've gotten into trouble in the past where we've introduced new technologies and stuff like that, and then when the technology's in and up and running, everybody's looking around saying, is it running right or not? And everybody says, well, I really don't know.
I understand.
So with the plan that you're proposing, would that give us mechanical cooling throughout that building?
It would.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's really no way to deal with a humidity issue without cooling.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the benefit is, for a summer school program or something like that,
Right.
to have a building that's air conditioned.
Right, and, we bring in about 600 kids and every summer, and also, the moisture and the air quality at North Park has been just a tremendous concern.
How many kids can we handle at Hyde Park Elementary?
At Hyde Park Elementary?
No,
North Park?
North Park, I'm sorry.
North Park.
For summer program?
Yeah. Can we handle the full load, or?
We can, because some of those kids are middle school or high school. Of the 500 to 600 we bring in over the summer secondary.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we find out that climate change is actually real, we might want this too.
Heresy.
Yes, Mr. Trump. Is it real?
So Ralph Smith Elementary is very similar in approach, outside of the cooling and dehumidification. It's a steam system pushing towards hydronic, and again, we would look at other options here. But one of the options that's been developed is to place the new piping in the existing pipe tunnels. It's a fairly straightforward approach in this building. I'd say the really odd situation here is the gym. There's really no ventilation existing in the gym. So what we're proposing to do is to rework the locker room area that appears to be underutilized, and so maybe a benefit to that would be an upgrade to that area to make that a little more useful space, and also provide space for some mechanical equipment for ventilating the gym. Any questions? So Netherwood. Netherwood is, I guess that's the only hydronic system in the district. So we've kind of scaled back our approach here to replace the mains in the corridors and to reconnect to the branch piping at each classroom, and basically set this building up for future upgrades on a classroom level. The existing mains are original and are approaching the end of their life, and there's really kind of an odd distribution system in the building with like 2 sets of mains that kind of wrap around the building, and so we would replace those with a single set of mains at the corridor ceiling and make new connections to existing piping. The controls are being upgraded on this equipment now, so we're confident that we can get these units to to function properly and provide an adequate environment, and still have the building infrastructure set up for upgrades as these units start to age out. The other areas that we would work in here are the gymnasium units we would consider replacing those. There's a kind of a strange unit heater, outside air intake system there, and we propose to see, I think we okay, we were proposing to put an air handling unit, and there's some storage space near that we would house that equipment in. We would try to avoid rooftop equipment where possible. The cafeteria stage also, there's a couple of units that are above the stage area that we would replace those units as well. So that's that's an overview. Any particular questions there?
Did we do Violet? Did I miss Violet?
I think just a general comment, and I guess I'm going to be looking to Mr. Garcia for some input on this at some point. So, I mean, one of the benefits, or I hear a lot of discussion about changing piping, mains, and certainly that adds a huge cost, and it's a huge purchase for the future. And it's certainly, and then, start changing mains, you start taking ceilings down, you start changing out light fixtures. I mean, it's a snowball effect. And not that it's not the right thing to do, but I'd be interested in knowing what's our history been, particularly in looking at steam lines and steam lines, what's the general condition? And I'm not even asking for an answer right now, but at some point, I'd like to hear a report as to what your thoughts are and what's being discussed as to, gee, that's going to solve a bunch of problems that we've got, or we've been fighting down in these crawl spaces and fixing pinhole leaks and condensate lines and fittings, and that's part of what we need. At least I feel like I need to hear about to help validate why we want to be doing all the piping that we're doing. The other option is, if you're saying that maybe we're not seeing as much of that, maybe it's the type of thing where we roll the dice and say, okay, let's change out the equipment and know that we may have to do piping at another project somewhere down the line. But not if you're changing from steam to hydronics. That may not be an option. So I guess I'm just putting it on the table that I think that's something we need to hear about as part of the, at least that's part of what I need to hear about.
So it brings us to Violet Avenue.
Violet Avenue first.
So we have identified riser locations in this building. I just have not shown them on this plan, but we have strategically located pipe risers. And again, this is a steam system that we're proposing to convert to hydronic. So where we would have piping that would be routed through the basement area. There's a lot of storage area off the corridor that would be a perfect place to run a lot of new mains, and then strategically locate risers in between classrooms where we can run horizontal piping inside the wall and run to new unit ventilators. There's an existing dehumidification system in the basement that we would keep and incorporate into the design. Replace the steam coil with a hot water coil. The one thing about this building is the relief air system. The shafts go to the attic from each classroom, so we don't feel that we need to provide new vertical shafts in this building. That we would do the bulk of the exhaust relief air work in the attic. And it would, from the attic, would be very similar to Haviland, except that we would not be constructing new chases through the building. And the gym auditorium space, the air handling equipment sits up in the attic. It's we would look to replace that equipment, probably replace the ductwork as well. It looks like it's in fairly rough shape up there. The cafeteria space is currently not ventilated from what I can see. So we're talking about creating mechanical space where the existing walk-in freezer is. We understand that is the district's in the process of moving that outside. Correct. So we would construct a small mechanical room in that area to provide air handling equipment to provide ventilation for the cafeteria space. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. Any questions there?
No, I guess, are we ready to have a conversation? And I don't know if you want to hear Lou talk about the financials. We have some of them in front of us.
You want to hear? You want to hear anything about the numbers?
Sure.
Okay. 34.5 million. Drop the mic.
Yeah.
What I want to say, as far as the numbers are concerned, there was a lot more detail given to me than I ever really get during the pre-referendum process. So as far as the numbers, I feel good about the work that's went into it. I know it's not what the board wanted to see as far as the volume of dollars, but there's a lot of work. The HVAC work is intrusive, but when you look at each one of the line items, I broke it out specifically so that you could look at the different components. The pods are all inclusive of the HVAC work that's part of the pods, with the toilet rooms and the elevator and the science classroom upgrades that are required to bring the existing science classrooms back to normal classrooms. The zones that were shown by Kevin for A through G, each one, there's new pipe work going back to the boiler room. And again, very intrusive. There's a lot of work going on there. So each one of these, when you go through each one of the schools, there's a lot of detail behind it. And I feel good about where we are as far as the homework that was done. What's good about that is that now we can really look to see, where we can scale things back to get it back to something that's feasible for the district. So,
Yeah.
and if there's any questions on the numbers, I'm willing to talk to them. But I think that this is such a big picture for you guys. This is not really where you want to be. So I think you said it earlier. There's a lot of detail here. It opens up a lot of questions, but the questions probably really don't matter until we come back with something that you guys can really feel good about.
I'd like, may I? Mm-hmm. My question isn't so much in concern about the validity of the numbers. I believe the numbers. I just would second Doug's comment in that we're just disappointed to get numbers that are so far over budget at this 11th hour without alternate presentations as to what might be a possibility to get us back down towards our budget. So it's not about the validity of the quotes. Just kind of disappointed we're having this conversation now.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, certainly, we're at least going to put it back a year or more, depending how the discussion goes. I can't possibly see working out all the details and still maybe getting it in a May vote, or maybe not, and that if it's a May vote, you miss the summer, it's another year. I mean, it's not just that the numbers are so bad, it just messes up any kind of schedule that we've been talking about. I'm really upset about that.
I think there's only one reality right now. It was certainly no more than anyone else an emotional hit when I opened up and saw the numbers yesterday. But our only reality is this is where we are in space and time. and we need to make some decisions. And I think I'd rather know this now than later. I can't imagine sitting before a community and finding this out after the pre-referendum phase. So that's one bright spot. We prided ourselves on coming in on time, under budget. Lou's been with us for a long time, and that's been our experience. And certainly, if you don't have that knowledgeable input up front, you're not going to get the on time and within budget. And I think if I set aside my emotions about the timing, the information presented was comprehensive, and it makes sense. The timeline's disappointing, the price tag is shocking, but we can go back and make some decisions. I think the one reality is we're looking at it's got to be a May vote. I mean,
If that.
You know,
Is there a reason why we're carrying it all together and not separating the science upgrades, the pods, and all the mechanical? And does all the mechanical have to be done all at once? I mean, it seems like, can't we phase that in over several votes?
There are some options, and I think that's, I think we need to kind of shift gears and think in terms, I mean, I think we can accomplish this between now and May and get something on a May vote. But I think we need to go back to our district leadership team. I think we need to hear from everybody again about some of our financial options. Once we hear some financial options, get an update from Elliot on what Perry just asked, we have a couple of ways we can look at maybe approaching a May vote. One is to look at some other financial options that we've explored. You know, the science in the pods being one. The other possibility, and it's not unheard of when you get to this point, is do we do pieces of something like this in phases, or do we phase in buildings? Do we say, within the scope of the amount of money we were looking to spend, do we do 3 schools now, and then 3 elementary schools when we do the roofs in a couple of years from now? The work needs to get done. We can look at some financial options, some different options about the type of work, and we can also look at, should we start thinking about phasing this in, you know, high school, middle school, North Park, to deal with the air quality, and knowing that the air quality and the moisture has been an ongoing problem there. Do we chunk it out and say our commitment's been to do the whole project? Do we chunk out 3 schools? Do we see how far maybe renovating the science labs in their place brings us? But I think we need to spend a couple months looking at options and looking at some different financing. But the going out with this project right now isn't something that we can handle. We need to have more conversations and more presentations at the board meeting, and we need to bring the district leadership team on board, because they've been working on this for 2 years, and so they're a committed voice in the decision-making process. So again, I'd rather be here in this awful place now than in an awful place at the end of a project where we can't complete it and we're out of money and we've depleted our reserves. So I guess if I look at worst case scenario, I'm going to start to work backwards and saying, how can we make the best possible move forward with the information we have?
And I would add that timely information is essential if we're going to ever get this done. We can't, or you can't go away for 2 months and then come back with something new. Yeah, we need to know it sooner. And if we have to have more meetings, then we'll have more meetings. I mean, I think it's too important to get it as right as we can, as soon as we can. So I'm expecting lots of communications.
So I think my colleagues have been very restrained in expressing disappointment. I feel a sense of outrage at the fact that the work that was known at the beginning, at the onset of this during the summer, could have been estimated, and we could have avoided conversations about science lab upgrades had that work been started in advance. But at this point in time, I think that us considering options and trying to come up with plans at the board meeting is not our role. So I would suggest to the rest of the board that we table this conversation, let the staff consider the issue and create some options, and come back at a later time, including schedule. It's hard to know at this point what kind of schedule is possible. The other thing that I would point out to the rest of the board is that new business 11.8 is a vendor agreement. I need to leave because of personal business at this point, so I won't be here at that point in the meeting, but I would like to suggest that we modify the current agenda to remove that and not vote on that issue tonight. Mr. Chairman, please consider that a motion.
Second?
All in favor, then?
Any other discussion?
I'm wishy-washy on this. And on one hand, I don't question the expertise of the architectural firm. My problem is with timing and not trying to keep to what we asked for. That's my big problem. So I
don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But the reason I suggest it is not that I question expertise, but at this point, I don't have a strong sense of trust. And this is a contract for services, but it's also a partnership. And until I've reached the point where I trust the people that we're going to be working with on this, it's going to be hard for me to get behind it. As I said, I won't be here to vote on it, but that is, it's a serious decision, and I think that, you know, the fact that this information is, what, less than 2 days old for us at this point in time, maybe taking the time between now and the next meeting to circle back, understand what happened, and discover whether we can achieve that sense of trust and move forward with the agreement. I think it's better to consider it now than perhaps consider that we made a mistake later.
I would just say that we have to be careful because there was a resolution
earlier.
There was a resolution to accept the services pending legal review of the contract. So
Let me ask a question of our vendor in place. Are you in a position where you can give us more time to review the contract and make decision on it.
Yes.
So given that information, I think that gives us a little more time to consider it. I agree. I think we do have an obligation here. I don't know whether we formally signed a letter of intent, but I do believe that we did a motion of
We did.
intent. So I think we have an obligation here. I think for the comfort of all the people, certainly sitting at this table, if our vendor isn't pressing to have that contract formalized, I think that we would take the time to review and discuss before we move forward with it.
Okay. No, I wouldn't, do we had a motion to remove it?
You have a motion and you have a second. That was a
And
discussion.
we've discussed it. All right, all in favor of the motion? I guess I'll go along with it then if that's all right with you. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm?
Unanimous.
Yeah. Okay.
I think while we're on this timely topic, our next board meeting is December 14th. Do we have them come back? Do we hold a meeting December 7th? Do we? I mean, we have some options. We've got November 29th, we've got December 7th. Do we, and I don't know what, Brian, you would be comfortable with, coming back for a conversation either, or we have a conversation on November 29th and/or December 7th. I'm not sure how we want to.
Well, we had planned, when we came here tonight, we knew we were over budget. We had planned to come with options to bring you to budget on the 7th.
On the 7th, yeah.
We need to, if you get the committees involved, we need to get that done.
Right.
So we can make that date. But we have ideas.
Right.
It's going to take, we need to understand concepts too.
Mhm.
Do you want to leave a few buildings out? Do you want to touch every building? That plays into how we're going to recommend. We don't know what that is now.
Right.
So we're going to recommend different things. If you can tell us what you prefer, things that will bring on your budget by the 7th. I can't continue it past the 7th. I was paying for it.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And show you what we can do with your budget. If you could please tell me what your budget is, and we can do that.
Right. December 7th? Okay. I know Mike can't make it.
Yeah, I can't, right, that was when you sent.
Right.
I can't make it.
Yeah, that'll give us the DLC meeting to
Right.
discuss it.
PLT's on the 29th.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll,
So if you could discuss and tell me what that number is you want us to get to.
Well, the number was in the agreement.
right.
The number was in the agreement. That's why I'm so upset. It was not to be,
That was an estimate.
well, that's
the number.
still,
I'm totally fine. That's the number. I have the-
okay,
Appreciate it. Thank you very
all
much.
right. He's upset. No, that's good.
Well, yeah.
So we will discuss it at the DLT meeting. We
Okay.
will be prepared to make a decision on the 7th, how to go forward.
And let them know
And let
what
them
we
know.
want them to prepare to show us on the 7th. So I'll call them on the 30th. The DLT is an open meeting. It is set for November 29th. So
All board members can attend without treating it as a board meeting?
we could substitute,
If you
we could
publish it-
we could publish it.
If you publish it, it can be.
If we publish it, we could, there's two ways we could do it. We could have a,
Well, it could be a special board meeting with only one item, the DLT.
But then does that
Agenda.
mean you're running it instead of the DLT?
Well, yeah, that would, that.
Who
but
wouldn't have to, how many, what's the maximum that can attend?
Three.
without-
Three.
We can't have more than 3.
Right.
I would step out of it because I get a little lost with some of the particulars. I would rather somebody a little more knowledgeable be able to speak
And
with people, so.
Jeff is stepping off permanently.
Certainly Perry and Steve should be there.
I don't know if Jeff copied everybody, but Jeff needs to step down from the DLT, so we've got Perry.
Right. I've been
And-
attending, but, you know.
And Doug.
If Mike wants to attend, or,
I'm fine not, I think
okay.
Perry's probably.
But certainly, I would
Well, you're
appreciate.
a Perry, that's all there is
I
to
would-
it.
If Perry and Steve both can attend, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I plan to be there.
Okay.
And then we don't have to worry about it.
Right,
being-
and Denise, yeah.
And I'll
Okay.
step, and I won't attend.
Okay. All right. Or you can watch, if we publicize it, there's,
Well, but if we have 4 board members there, that's bad.
Yeah, I know.
Right, that's what I
Yeah.
mean, so
Okay.
I'm happy to not attend
Okay.
and let you all go.
Is that 6?
Yeah.
All right?
so we basically have to share our new development with the district leadership team, give them an opportunity to provide some input. It will be helpful to have 3 board members there that have seen this and can help convey where we're at and come up with some new parameters and, good, okay, that's a plan.
I'm not familiar how these things work, but wouldn't they start at like 15 and then say, okay, this is what we get for this, and then all the way up to the Cadillac model, which they gave us?
That has been my experience with capital projects and/or if the interesting thing with this is that they did go in deeper than they normally would do on the pre-referendum, which is a good thing, but the fact that going into that level created such a rift between what we were looking at. The other thing was that I was pretty adamant at all the project team meetings that I wanted options. And actually said, this is a board that's going to want to see options. I want to see options. I was crystal about the option at FDR to say, before we really do the extensive work in the pods, I get it, you read the building condition survey, it makes sense because the pods need the most amount of work. But without seeing the difference between 8 million and 2 million, I wouldn't feel comfortable going to the voters saying, we didn't look at that option. And maybe at the end of the day, we say, rebuild the pods, it's the best possible thing to do, but without seeing it, how can we say we didn't look at that?
Yep.
So,
Answer that question.
I think I can easily tell them that one thing we want to see is, we want to see an estimate of rebuilding science labs. It does affect FDR because we know that the science classrooms are too small, so we're going to have to use other classroom space and turn it into a science lab, but that's not a hard number to come up with. The tricky part is what the expense is going to be to refurbish the science labs where they are because of what they may potentially find.
Right. It may be very difficult
But
also.
without having that option that
Not
I
to
asked for
mention, we
since
asked
day
that.
one. Yes.
Early on, we asked that. What would it cost?
With all of this stuff, though, you look at it, and like, the pods alone is all you could afford in that 15 million.
Well, if Elliot and I ran some numbers, if you did FDR and Haviland, it would be 16 million. And financially, we were hoping to be around the 15 million.
But that's a construction cost, that's not.
That's your input.
Yeah.
No, that's the uptick too, right? There's like a 50% increase from what the actual cost?
Yeah, there's 38.5% of incidental and contingencies to put on top of any construction cost. But the upper bank of numbers, the 24 million, is purely construction cost.
Yeah.
Everything below that 24 million is design contingency, construction contingency, escalation, and your incidental costs, which you may not spend all of that.
Right.
Right.
But you don't want to go into a project like this without some hefty amount of
Yeah.
contingency.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
May I ask another question, too?
sure.
Now, I know part of it is we're talking about having the options and the costs for what they had here, too, but, and I know that Linda, you did a lot of work in reviewing the finances and stuff, I mean, but can we revisit our finances and right, I mean, you spoke about that a little bit earlier.
Right.
And stuff, can we, I mean, can we afford more than what we got? You know, I mean, I'm not, we came up with this budgeted number for a reason, you know, but I don't know what that means for us.
Right. Well, go ahead.
So when Jason from BPD was here last time, he showed that we could afford up to the 24 million if we used all of our reserves, but then we would totally wipe those out.
Right.
We
And that's
wouldn't
bad,
have
that's not
that.
good.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we did plan on using that for the roof project
Right.
in the
Okay.
future.
Yeah, we,
But
And I'm sorry, and that includes, any refinancing like that includes taking on any of the state aid and the debt and
yes,
and
that
the
was,
debt?
yeah, that's like considered the local share. So that's
Okay, thank you.
the debt netted against the aid that we would get back for spending the money.
Okay.
I mean, we could also look at phased work, you know.
A phase.
You know, if you did it all at once, it'd take, 3 years, but maybe if you stretch it out and you did the debt service every 3 years to do the whole project.
Yeah, we do have.
It just,
Yeah, we do have options for the timing, because we could, we do have the debt service drop-off coming in
Right.
2021.
21, right?
But in the presentation from Jason, he also planned to use some of our debt service fund to pay off debt that we currently have.
Right.
And we could just, I spoke with Melissa from his office today, we could just move those numbers out one more year. So move it into 2022 and 23 and still stay at our maximum amount. It's about 1.56 million.
Okay.
So we're not changing the tax cap.
So when we see a price tag like this, so when Jason figures this, does he figure this total amount in, and then we take out the building aid, or he's costing the building aid in? So is this 34 million, is this 34 million, but then take away our 60% aid, or?
When he calculated that we could go up to 24 using the full $7 million reserve, that's what we could afford, including the aid. So
Yeah, it
the
includes
amount, though.
Okay.
we
The
d-
total project.
The total project.
That would be
Right.
the total
Right.
project.
Including
So
the
going from
aid.
24 to 34 million, we wouldn't have to come up with 10 million more, because we would have aid coming back if
Right.
but it's still, we don't have the reserves
Right.
for that. We would go over
And
the-
just for our listening audience, I don't think there's any stomach to spend down all the reserves.
No.
No, then we
Okay.
wouldn't, yeah.
So that's off the table, so we're
We
really.
have roofs to worry about.
Right, exactly.
Right, okay.
So I just wanted that for our listening audience. So we really are looking at that 15 to 17 million
Yes.
max.
Yes, yes. Because even the 24, we don't want to do that.
Right.
Linda, when do we get the aid? We have to complete the project, right? Close it out.
Over
Yeah.
the life of the
Yeah.
financing, you'll
Yep.
get it,
So we,
20 years.
15.
I mean, as we're
like-
spending, are we
15
getting some reimbursement? I thought it was only,
As we are paying back
As we-
the bonds,
Yep.
then we get our aid from the state.
Yeah, we get the aid and the debt payments are tied together, so we get them in the same year.
okay, so we're not faced with getting the job done before we ever see a return flow from the government, from the state and aid.
Yeah, we usually don't take out the bonds until after the project is over, so we wouldn't get the reimbursements until the project is complete. We usually finance with short-term bans in the interim.
And you have to have the project complete now before
Yes.
any aid will flow.
Yes.
It used to be that you could get aid before you were complete, but now you have to have the job closed out before they'll start sending you any money. So that's why, to that point, that short-term financing is included in the incidental
Yes.
cost. So that's why that number, it's 20%, but part of that is in addition to the architect's fees and the engineer or the construction manager's fees, it's all of your short-term financing, it's all expenses that we have to Bernie Donegan, it's all of those costs associated, what we typically call soft costs.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Time to move on, yeah?
Okay.
Okay. We decimated the audience already. So maybe there was method to that. Can I have a motion to enter public participation, please?
Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? Sustenance, huh? Sustenance.
I'm totally taking one.
No,
Thank you.
no, I've
I
seen
can't
myself
take
eat on
I
camera.
can't.
I'm not.
Oh, now you say that.
Well, enjoy.
So would anybody like to address the board? All right.
Don't say no, don't say no.
Can I have a motion to close public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor of closing participation? Opposed? Like, thank you.
Okay, where are we?
Do we have any board subcommittee reports?
No, I got a supper to eat.
No, that just that, well, I don't know if you have board subcommittee reports, but we do need a permanent replacement for Jeff on the DLT as he requested.
Oh, that is true. That is true.
So,
I'm thinking, wow, but Steve's so busy at this point in time.
Well, he's not
it'd be
here,
nice.
so that's an easy one.
Yes, we can just appoint him, yeah, exactly.
We could ask Steve.
What are the meetings? How often?
We'll probably need
We
to
can
add a
step
few
up
more
that.
now, but there's probably 3 more scheduled for the rest of the year in the evening at 6 o'clock. But we'll probably have a couple more. They're Wednesday nights.
I can do that.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
God bless.
So,
Thank you.
You can, so,
would you like to go to the 29th one? I will step aside for that. If
Yeah, I guess so. Right? I can make it.
okay.
so who, it was Perry,
So it'd be, Mike.
Denise, and Mike will be on the DLT.
No.
No, Perry, Denise, and Doug.
And Doug well, Steve is going to go to the next meeting, right? Didn't Steve say he
Yeah.
would go on the 29th?
No,
Yeah.
I think she's saying permanently. Right?
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was,
You're all permanent? That's all, I'm not.
Okay.
No.
So permanently, it was Doug,
Yeah.
Jeff, and Perry.
right.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's going to be Doug, Perry, and Mike. Okay.
Wow. The next discussion, I think is.
Actually,
not-
if I could, subcommittee, did we have, yeah,
Oh,
board subcommittee, yeah.
You got one?
Yeah, I would say that we had a very nice presentation by Ms., I think it was Jerkowski is her last name. Dr. Hooley mentioned her name. Is it Jerkowski?
Yes.
She is the Director of Special Education, Pupil Personnel Services. I'm not sure exactly what her exact title is at BOCES now. But was enlightening to hear about how the world of special education works from someone other than our own people. So they kind of got a non-biased, and gave us a little, some general information to work with. And not to disparage what we have, but it's always good to
Right,
hear
always
from
hear.
a third party. And that is one thing that the School Board Association has been doing recently, is trying to bring in kind of specialists or someone who can enlighten us, who may not
I think they've
have a
made
relationship.
very good gains in that area. It's become more effective organization because of that.
The BOCES organization?
No,
The School Board Association, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay.
And to that point, I think it's January 20th. I'll confirm that date, but I think it's January 20th. We're doing a legislative event
Oh, right.
down at the Marriott Courtyard. I think it's a Saturday morning, and the intent is to be bringing in our local state legislators and senators to discuss what's important.
And they've committed to come?
Yes, yep.
In the
Yep.
past, it's been difficult to get them to show up.
Yeah, this is a rejuvenation of something that had been done years ago and kind of fell by the wayside because just of participation, on both sides of the table, both the elected officials as well as the board members.
Okay.
So we're hoping to make another stab at it, and I'll have more information as it becomes available.
Okay. The next discussion item is no longer necessary. We're not going to have it's not going to be snowing in May.
No.
Hopefully. So we'll skip that. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion there?
Yes, a couple. So tonight on the agenda is the end of employment for Joan Van Vlack. And I just wanted to, I know that when Aviva was here running the meeting at the last meeting, she mentioned it, but I just wanted to say that now that it's official that Joan is no longer with us, I just wanted to thank her from the bottom of our collective hearts for her service since 1994. She'll be sorely missed, and she was just an unbelievably beautiful lady. So that's with our deep regrets. We also have two significant retirements on the agenda tonight. Dave Lasher, groundskeeper since 2008, and Dave was also just he is the gentlest, kindest person, so we're sorry to see him leave. We wish him the best in his retirement. And Jenny Garrison, cook manager of FDR and Haviland Middle School, is also leaving for retirement since 1998. So we wish both Jenny and Dave the best of luck in retirement.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Get down to, I have a motion for special education placements, please.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Dan?
I've reviewed the packet and recommend its adoption as presented.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. I have a motion for bid awards, the PE mini bid.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. I have a motion for the professional service agreement,
So can you give us a minute?
11.3. What's that?
She just needs a minute, second.
Uh-oh.
And I'm up.
You're up.
Oh, I grabbed it.
Technical difficulties there? Huh.
Click as fast.
Maybe that has to go into the capital project plan. No. Okay. Have a motion for the professional service agreement for physical therapy evals.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. A motion for the Anderson Consulting Services, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion there?
I would just make a general comment, and it's nice to see the calculations of what these contracts, what the upside of these contracts are. I appreciate seeing that.
Thank you.
Thanks goes to Aviva for getting it on her
And
people's
Jane
radar.
Parrish for actually
Whoever's doing it, I appreciate it.
Yes.
Yep. And I offer a cream puff for,
All right. You done? You done talking?
I'm never going to be done.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Thank you. Motion for the lead evaluator recertification. That would be for Mr. Sullivan.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Have a motion for the overnight field trip request.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion there?
Actually, I have a question about this one and the next one, which is the softball. They're both going, actually, I think that they're both going to North Carolina, or actually, it says, this one says North Carolina, but it does say
It's really South Carolina.
that they're going to South Carolina.
Yeah.
Because they're
Right.
going to the Myrtle Beach area.
Right.
Right.
Do we-
This item's wrong.
Yeah, do we have any
Right.
liability? And so this, the boys are taking a bus.
Right.
The girls are going with parents.
Yes.
Right.
Do we,
We've had this discussion so many times over the years.
have we ever gotten a good answer? I mean, do we have, I
Yeah,
mean,
we-
any difference in liability,
Yeah,
anything?
we actually, well, do you
Well,
want
we
to
have
take
a
it?
policy that says they can do that. I always question whether or not every parent can or is willing to drive, and what happens to those girls don't go, and if they don't go, does it held against them by the coaches because they didn't attend? And, you know, is everybody winking and nodding, and some people are traveling with other parents?
Well, that's my other question,
Yeah.
is do we
So-
have students who are traveling with parents of other students?
Supposedly not.
Not,
That's-
no, and, you know, this has been a long, long, long journey. We involved our attorneys every step of the way with this. We have a special permission form.
Okay,
It's
we
all
do.
been
That's what I was gonna
vetted.
ask, okay.
We have been promised every which way but Sunday that there would be absolutely no repercussions if someone doesn't make it on the trip. It is something that we monitor because it has been such a high-profile trip. We had one year where there was going to be a situation, I think it resolved itself, where a girl didn't have a parent drive, and at that point, Pat Mosier was willing to be and qualified to be what they called some sort of an incidental driver, and he was going to take a van, and that would be inspected by George. So if push comes to shove, that a girl can't go down with her parents, we know that there's a mechanism we could look at to see if
Okay.
somebody qualified, but it's
It's a nightmare.
it's not
what
something
it
that we feel comfortable with, but we vetted this with our attorneys to be sure that, since this is the will of the softball team and has been for a very long time, it was an accommodation we made, and since making that accommodation in maybe 2009, 10 or 11, I don't remember the date when we finally said that they could do this without the bus.
It used to be you could go down with anybody, and then the rule got changed, you could only go with your parent. And then, let's see, she graduated in '08, it was always parents drive down. And then I think around '09, '10, they said you gotta take the bus, and did that for a few years. And the
Right.
Booster Club worked with you guys to
Right.
say, you know, we're spending $12,000 a year, and all the parents are going down anyway, can't we save the $12,000 and put it towards like the field improvement type of stuff, buy a scoreboard and stuff like that? So then, that's where you did the work with the lawyers and
Right.
everything to get it back to, okay, parents could drive.
And I will say, since we did bring it to parents can drive, it has been without incident. And
Yeah, I think the point I
I'm
was
hoping
looking at
everybody's
is,
above board.
yeah, do we have any students that are traveling with another parent?
No.
That would be, that's where I would see the greatest liability at this point.
Yeah.
You know, God forbid something happened, the parent of the child who went with another parent
Right.
is going to come back and say, the
I
district,
think the forms that we have clear us of that.
okay.
I'm positive, because I know we spend a lot of time.
So they're signed by the parent saying, I am transporting my
Yes.
child.
Yep.
Okay.
Or I allow my child to be
And
transported.
I think it was
by
my
some other child.
recollection that the insurance, the state insurance that we're through actually allows other
Yes.
parents to take your kid. But our district, we chose to implement a policy
Right.
that's stricter than what the insurance company.
Yeah, that form was available multiple years in advance of when we adopted it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're very happy.
Okay.
The softball people
Okay.
are happy about it.
So we're doing the baseball trip. All in favor?
Yeah, we have to, yeah, motion first.
I thought we had.
No, we got motion and second, we're
We-
ready to vote.
For the
Okay.
baseball, we had. We need a vote. All in favor? Hey, see, I got something right
Wait,
here.
I'm sorry that I missed the motion and the second.
Oh,
I
Denise
apologize.
second.
I made the motion.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Who
Next.
seconded?
Okay.
Denise said she did not.
Oh, I thought you did.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Somebody
Mike
from
did.
down there.
Mike? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
We're doing all the work down here.
Who would have known?
Sorry.
Now, on to the softball trip. May I have a motion for the overnight field trip for softball?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? No? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We've removed the vendor agreement one.
Did we have a motion to remove it?
We did.
Yeah, we did. May I have a motion to enter public participation?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Anybody? No? No? Okay. Where's Mr. Hughes when we need him? Yeah. Recovering. May I have a motion to close public participation, please?
Second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? Opposed? We have no other matters deemed necessary. There is no need for a second executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned.
Okay.